Hey, what's up, guys? Good morning. This is Chair here. So, just gonna do a video here because I posted about this Fannie Mae new lending guidelines, a new program about doing 95% LTV or 5% down on 2 to 4 units. That's coming out here. I think it's gonna be effective November, mid-November here, and I posted in a few groups. And one of my buddy Gur asked me to do a video on it explaining why I think there's benefits of this program. So I'm just gonna go through that with talking a little bit about what the program is. Go through an example of how I purchased my first real estate property with a different program and why I think this one is superior to what I used back in 2021 when this wasn't around, or at least I couldn't find it in my market when I was trying to do conventional financing. So before we start, just a quick reminder that I am not a loan officer. So I'm speaking from just my real estate agent experience and also as a personal investor. I'm by no means an experienced investor or anything. I've only been doing this for a couple years, and only have a few properties under my belt. So I typically don't do videos on stuff that I haven't personally put in through the process. Sometimes I will talk about like theories or strategies that I've read and heard that I liked, but I don't usually try to put those things out there unless I've done it myself and kind of see, the pros and cons of the process. So just keep that in mind. That, and also the other thing is, when I posted this yesterday, a few of the lenders in the group, which that were was nice enough to give us some feedback in there, which was great. So I'm assuming that if you're looking to buy here, that you you know you're you got your finances somewhat in order to be able to qualify for these programs. So things like making sure you have good credit history, having some level of reserves. Typically, banks will want like 6 months of reserve. Some may do 3 to 5 months there, but typically what I see is 6 months reserve. And that doesn't mean that you need to have that amount in your bank, right? It just means that when they look at your overall net worth or finances, that you have the ability to cover that if you had to pull out, whether it's in your 401k, stock investments, or some other financial assets, right? And uh, if you don't have those things in order, then and you're not sure, then the best way to find out is just to take your information, go talk to a few banks, get them to get you to go through the pre-approval process, and then they'll let you know. If you're not there, then um, the smart and the really good loan officers will help put some sort of financial plan for you to follow to get you to where you need to be in like 6 months to a year, depending on your situation, right? So just keep that in mind. What I have here is just what I shared in those group, a screenshot of that program talking about, uh, you know, the what it looks like for these type of purchases, or with the new program, instead of like 75 to 85% LTV, now it's 95% for all 2 unit, 3 to 4 units here, right? And then the other document over here is talks about the max loan amount for each type. So like for if I were to do this, I would prefer to do in like a 3 or 4 unit. And so 4 unit, it's almost 1.4 million, which is great because my market is really, the price are really high. We could still find something under 1 million for a 4 unit. It's just sacrificing on the location a little bit there. But this is the program that we shared yesterday. I'm gonna walk through an example here. So in this example, I'm going to go through my actual purchase that I did, and then I'm gonna go through a few hypotheticals of why I like this conventional product at 5% down a lot better than my FHA program here. Okay, so I in in 2021 I purchased my first triplex, my first investment property. Got it for 590. Did 5% down. I could have done 3.5, but I did 5% down, so that was just under 30 grand. My closing cost was about 32,000, and that came out to be right here, cash to close at 61,600. And the primary reason why it went up to 61,000 here is you guys see a few of the things I highlighted in red here. Points to meet the SS test, the self sustainability or self sufficiency test. So with FHA loans, if you're buying a 3 unit or four unit property, the rents from those units have to be more than your monthly mortgage. Otherwise, they don't allow you to uh, purchase it. Now, on the 2 unit, you don't have that test, but on the 3 and the 4 unit, you do have that test. And my lender at the time didn't explain this to me. It was my first one, um, and my real estate agent, which was my buddy, he either had forgotten about it, he didn't explain it to me either. So we got to closing, like 5 days to closing. I got my final um, close uh, closing disclosure, and they were like, "Hey, yeah." So my lender was like, "Yeah, so you gonna have to fork out like another 20 grand because these rents don't meet the self sufficiency test. So in order to get the interest rate to where the monthly mortgage will be below your rents, you have to pay about $20,000 to uh, buy down the points." I was like, "Well, shit! Like I don't have 20,000 to fork out. I had the funds, but I didn't want to. I wasn't planning on doing that. So I was actually gonna walk because this part really surprised me. So then, to my lender's credit, they came back and they say, "Hey, you you think you can do around like close to 10 grand? If you can do that, then we messed up with the communication, so we will credit the other half and get you to where you need to be." And so that's why you see 96 here instead of 20,000. The other thing with the FHA loan is there's two types of insurance that you have to get when you're putting down less than 20%. One is a MIP or mortgage insurance premium that gets paid up front in your closing costs, so that's gone forever. And then the other is the standard PMI or principal mortgage insurance, which it gets rolled into your monthly payment. So conventional, if you were to go less than 20%, you only have to pay the PMI, which is rolled into your monthly. You don't have this MIP to cover. So this is the government, because the government is guaranteeing 100% of the loan to the banks. They are making you pay for that premium to cover it, because ultimately, even with this high MIP, the closing cost is still much lower than if you were to do like 20% on a conventional. So that's kind of how they're looking at it. But a little tidbit: if you were ever to buy single family and you only have less than 5% down, try to look for the conventional 3%, 5%, because again, on the from a financing perspective, this FHA loan is not as good. Part of the reason why some people elect to use FHA is because maybe their credit is not where it needs to be. So conventional loans, that your credit score needs to be better than the FHA loan, so that has a lower threshold on FHA, and that's why some people have to use those. But if you qualify for both FHA and conventional, always go for the conventional, in my opinion. Anyways, getting back to this, so all in all, I'm out at closing. I had to bring in almost 62,000. So my loan amount's 563. Because I paid down the interest rate, it went from like 2.785, I think somewhere around there, to like 1.75. Crazy interest rate that I don't even know how we got these, but during that time, there were 2%, 2.5, 2.75% interest rate. It's crazy. Um, and then that equates to mortgage premium and principal and insurance. My MIP, PMI, I was telling you earlier about, and then the escrow fund. So all in all, almost 2,900 in monthly obligation. My rents at the time, I had to carry these for a year because um, the seller renewed all the leases right before he put them on the market. I don't know why he did that. A little tip here too: if you're ever in a position to sell, don't renew your, at least in Washington State, don't renew your leases, because that's what's gonna make it less attractive to the new buyer, is that now they're stuck with those leases for a whole year. They can't do anything about raising the rents. Um, but you can see here now that the rents are 3,050 and my mortgage is lower than that. I've passed that self sufficiency test. Down here, just a little bit of annualize like analysis for you to consider. So this minus this is 172. I obviously didn't factor in the utilities, so it's closer to like um, 95 to $100 a month for my first year there. Annualized about 2,000. And so most investment gurus always say like, hey, don't ever, when you're investing, don't ever invest for, or don't ever bank on appreciation. You should always make the deal work based on the cash flow. And I do agree with that statement to an extent, but at the same time, at least in my market, it's a high equity growth market. So when I go into a deal, I don't necessarily bank on the cash flow. I know that I'm a buy and hold long term, trying to hold on to the property as long as I can. So as long as the monthly cash flow is enough to cover my debt, and I'm not having to pull too much money from other um, resources to cover the maintenance of the property, I'm okay with that. So whether I'm just cash flowing $100 or even negative $300 to $500, if I can cover that negative, I don't mind that. In my opinion, or the way I approach things. Um, and then this 110 is not 1.5%. This 110 is the actual um, equity gain. So after a year of owning it, the estimated value was about 710. It was closer to 715, but I'm just being conservative. 710, and I bought it at 590. So my equity gain on that after a year is 110 grand, right? So that's what I'm going after. That's why I'm a buy and hold investor, because uh, you're not gonna get wealthy off of $100 a month or $2,000 a year here, right? But it's the equity growth that really catches my eye. Now let's say we go to a hypothetical situation. Now that we have the 5% down conventional loan, we could do that. And let's say that in today's market, that this property is actually 750 instead of 590. Well, at 5% down is 37,000, and closing costs, because I don't have to worry about MIP and this self sustainability test. I don't have to pay this crazy amount to get the interest rate down to where it'll work, and I don't have to pay this premium. So on average, closing cost is anywhere between 1 to 2% of the purchase price. I just use 2.5 to be on the conservative side. So all in all, even though the purchase price of this home is 750, uh, I'm only out 56 grand instead of 61,000 up front at closing, because I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to deal with this unless I choose to, right? So let's say My loan amount comes down to 713 grand here. Interest rate now is really high, so instead of the 1.75, I'm at 7.5%. Crazy. We've gone from one extreme to the other extreme. Anyways, my P&I is almost 5,000. Then mortgage insurance and escrow, I'm about $6,058 a month in debt. Now, the rents here, I put in rents that I know I could get in my market, because I'm charging 1875 right now, so I'm putting in 1900 for each of the 2-1. The rate ranges anywhere between 1650 to 2300 depending on the quality of your unit. And then for the first year, because I'm going to be occupying this as a single guy, I'm staying in the 1-1, the cheapest one, because I want to maximize the income coming in. So I'm sacrificing a little bit here in terms of luxury, right? So I'm staying in the 1-1, so I don't get any rent for that. So my rent is only 3,800, and my mortgage is like 6,000 here. So if I was in a position where I can move around, I'm flexible, and I can cover this 2,200 dollars a month in negative mortgage, I mean that's okay because I'm not paying 6,000. I'm paying 2,258. So because I live in there, I don't get all the rents for the first year, and annualized, that's I'm paying about 27,000, 9,600 um, in rent pretty much for the first year. Um, so if you were living in a 1 bedroom, you may be paying like 1,400. So it's you're in this first year you're losing because interest rate is so high, right? But check this out. Like, let's say very conservatively that year one, the property went up at 1.5%. So that equates to about 11,000. Um, so really, you're down about 15,800 the first year because you have to occupy the place. Well, I don't. For me, if I'm thinking long term and I'm thinking about building wealth, negative 15,000 is not a big sacrifice to get into a property that is worth 750,000 when I only have to put in 56,000 to hold on to an asset like that. Now let's look at the same thing in year two, right? So let's say in year two you move out. You no longer need to be there because typically you want to stay in there for a year or so before you can move on to the next property. So you move out in year two, your mortgage stays the same, everything stays the same. Maybe escrow might change a little bit. Let's just say like it goes up to 750 because insurance and property tax went up. So, but everything else stays the same. So let's say in year two, um, maybe you got to increase rent a little bit, maybe about $50, and we'll just leave 1450 here for the one unit. So now you're no longer living there. You're getting three paychecks a month from the 3 units. Now your total rent is 5350, and your mortgage is 6158. So now on a monthly basis, your net income is only negative 800. Um, so it's a huge improvement from here, right? In year two. So your annualized debt that you're under is 9,600. But if again the equity grew another 1.5%, now you're up to 22,669. And if you calculate that now, you don't have any money in here. You put out, you're a little bit negative, but you're on the equity, you're positive. if you factor in the equity, you're actually positive $12,970 here. And a lot of people don't see this because all they see is the money that goes out, right? The money that goes out of your bank, the money that's sitting in the house because it's not yours. You don't see it. You haven't sold the house, and you haven't collected that equity. You're kind of thinking it's not yours, but it's almost like the house is your bank or your savings account, but it's grown at a much faster rate than if you were to take your money and just give it all to the bank, right? So this is why I say that the conventional loan is a much more powerful tool because one, it even if I'm negative, it allows me to take out the loan as long as I know that I can cover these negatives here up front with whatever funds that I'm getting elsewhere. And with the FHA, if you're negative here, they won't even loan it to you unless you pay an crazy amount to get the interest rate down to where the numbers make sense, right? So I'm a long-term buy and hold, so these small negatives here is fine. So year three will this will just continue to go down, and eventually, you're stacking up a couple deals here and there every couple years. Like if you could do one a year, and then in 10 years you have 10 properties, and this rule doesn't go away, like it's a sure thing guarantee that just the equity from your property alone is going to get you to that millionaire status rather than trying to save through the bank or through 401ks. So I thought it was going to be like 10-15 minute explanation, but it actually took longer than that. So hopefully this helps you guys. Really, again, there's a lot more savvy investors out there. This is really not for those guys. This is for folks who are early on in their process like me, and maybe you're 1 or 2 steps behind me and you're still doing the analysis, trying to figure out like, does it make sense? I'm going into these deals and I'm losing money. Like on the front end, yes, like you are losing on a monthly basis, but in the long term, all these, if you can hold on to it, it's going to be a net positive for you. And so hopefully that helps you guys make a decision on whether or not you think investing in real estate is the right thing for you. Um, I have chosen to make it the right thing for me. And when I did that about 2 years ago, I set the expectation that I would not like back out of this thing at least for a whole decade. So if you're young, you're still trying to figure out if this is the right thing for you, I would say if it's one of those things that if it doesn't look like it works out in 6 months to a year, then you're gonna jump ship. Then don't even get into it in the first place. If you think that you're gonna be committed for 10, 15, 20 years, and the reason for doing this, one is for you, but two, more importantly, it's for the people around you that you love and care about, then I think, you know, uh, just be smart with your money. Have good reserves to protect you from the unknowns, and I have no doubt that it'll work out in your favor in the long term. And guys, keep in mind all these that I'm talking about. I didn't even bring in like other benefits of like tax saving strategies, uh, all the there's like several other benefits along with it. Like the other thing that I really like that people don't really talk about is when you're doing this, you're managing tenants. You're pretty much learning how to operate a small business as well. So all those business acumen that you get to learn on the job, instead of trying to read a textbook about it, there's no better way to learn than to just be hands on. Because I mean, for me personally, I learning from the textbook is hard to conceptualize or to visualize the things. So it's always I always retain the knowledge whenever I'm getting my hands dirty and learning it on the fly. So hopefully this helps you guys. Happy investing, and let me know if you have any questions. All right, take care. Bye bye.